June 18th, 1815. On a muddy field south of Brussels, Napoleon Bonaparte makes his final gamble. Over 200,000 men clash near a small village called Waterloo, and by nightfall, an empire will fall. Rain-soaked ground, a delayed cavalry charge, reinforcements arriving just in time to turn the tide. For hours, the outcome hung in the balance. But what if the Prussians had arrived too late? What if Napoleon had broken the line and marched back into Paris as Europe's undisputed master? By 1815, Napoleon had escaped exile on Elba and reclaimed France in just 100 days, rallying an army almost overnight. But all of Europe now stood against him. Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, united in a coalition determined to end his reign for good. Napoleon's only hope was speed. Strike the British and Prussian armies separately before they could combine their forces. At first, his plan worked. He battered the Prussians at Ligny and pushed Wellington's army back toward a ridge near Waterloo. But Napoleon delayed his final attack by several crucial hours, waiting for the muddy ground to dry. That pause, meant to protect his artillery, gave Wellington's exhausted troops time to hold on, and gave the Prussians time to march to the rescue. But suppose Napoleon hadn't waited. Picture the alternate timeline. Napoleon launches his assault at dawn instead of noon. Wellington's thin, battered line at Mont Saint-Jean has no time to recover from the previous day's fighting. The French Imperial Guard, held in reserve, breaks through before Prussian Marshal Blücher's exhausted troops can arrive. Without Prussian reinforcements to relieve the pressure, Wellington faces a full French army alone and is forced into a fighting retreat toward Brussels. Napoleon, instead of suffering his final defeat, claims perhaps his greatest victory.
A one battle of Waterloo would not have ended the wars against him, but it would have changed everything about how the next chapter of Europe unfolded.
With Wellington's army broken, Napoleon could have turned to negotiate from a position of strength rather than surrender. The coalition powers, Austria, Russia, and Prussia, still had vast armies in the field, but a stunning French victory could have fractured their fragile unity, each power wary of bearing the cost of continuing the war alone.
A surviving Napoleonic France might have retained influence over the Rhineland and parts of Italy, delaying the conservative order that European leaders were about to impose at the Congress of Vienna. Nationalist movements across Europe, which Napoleon's conquests had already stirred, might have accelerated by decades rather than waiting until 1848 and beyond. Some historians argue Napoleon's empire was doomed regardless, given Britain's naval dominance and the sheer size of the coalition ranged against him. But a victory at Waterloo could have brought France years, perhaps a generation, before the final reckoning came. Waterloo was decided not by one dramatic stroke, but by hours, weather, and the timing of two armies marching toward the same muddy field. Napoleon's delay to let the ground dry, Blücher's grueling march through mud to keep his promise to Wellington, and the desperate final stand of the British squares, any one of these threads pulled differently could have unraveled the entire battle. Had Napoleon struck at dawn, had the Prussians been turned back at Ligny, had Wellington's line broken an hour sooner, the map of 19th-century Europe might look nothing like the one we know today. History rarely turns on grand inevitabilities. It turns on hours, mud, and the marching speed of an exhausted army. Waterloo reminds us that the world we live in today was never guaranteed. It was won on a knife's edge, one exhausting afternoon in June.